and I completed the course up at RAF Grantham, as it then was, and but I waited for a posting to a night fighter squadron, and there were no vacancies, and I waited and I waited and I waited until I just gave up. And at that point, Don Bennett's recruiting sergeant, chap called Mahadi, Group Captain Mahadi, came to the Grantham and said anybody with 1,000 hours can volunteer to become a member of our night striking force. And I thought, that's for me. So I gave up all thoughts of night fighters, and I applied to go on to Don Bennett's light night striking force group, and was accepted. And I was very lucky. I thought, well, this is just about the most wonderful aircraft you could ever wish to fly in an air war, the Mosquito. And I was very, very fortunate. I fell in love with the Mosquito from the very first time that I started flying it. I'm still in love with the Mosquito, but it doesn't help. Somebody said, well, how did the Mosquito compare with the aircraft you were flying before? And I said, you mean the Blenheim? And he said, yes. Well, I said, when you took off from the airfield in a Blenheim, you could look back and position yourself before you set course. When you took off from the airfield in a Mosquito and you looked back, the airfield had disappeared. and really, basically, that was it. It was a fantastic aircraft to fly, and I was very lucky to fly it on operations. There was one incident when we were over Berlin. All the nasty things happened over Berlin. If you were going to be shot down, you're more likely to happen over Berlin than anywhere else. I would rather foolishly allow myself to get caught by predicted anti-aircraft fire, and there was one hell of a bang underneath us, and it lifted us right up and stopped both engines, and it was a bit worrisome. And my navigator, Doug, turned to me and said, what do we do now? Which I thought was a bloody stupid question. And I said, well, we must wait, mustn't we? And we waited, and what seemed like our period of 6 months, the engines restarted because it just interfered with our carburation. And once that sort of settled down, the engines stopped windmilling and they took power, and off we went. And this was the famous occasion when I turned to Doug, who, remember, was on my right, and I said, you weren't frightened, were you, Doug? No, he said, I wasn't frightened, I was just bloody terrified. And I think that summed it up tolerably well. We had another occasion when we were flying back from, Berlin to Downham Market, and I was reasonably clear of Berlin and on the way home, but still over enemy territory. And I used to set course about 25,000 feet on the Mosquito, and although we hadn't got an automatic pilot, it virtually flew itself. All it needed was a slight correction when it drifted off course. So I must confess I used to take a nap on the way home. It's absolutely true. I can take a nap anywhere. In fact, if I wanted to, I could sit down now and take a nap. I'm not going to. And anyway, we were going back, and all of a sudden there was a bloody great bang under our starboard wing, and that woke me up. And Doug said to me, what was that? Which I thought was another bloody stupid question. And I said, well, it was a shell, wasn't it? And he said, yes. So when we got back, I was interrogated by the debriefing officer, and I said, while we're about it, you might explain why this sort of shell came at us out of the blue. Oh, he said, where was it? So Doug pointed at a position on the chart, and the debriefing officer laughed and said, oh, he said, you flew over a German anti-aircraft training school. He said it would be manned mainly by German women, some as young as 17. And he said they saw you coming over straight and level at 25,000 feet, and they polishing their sights, and he said they were only allowed one shell a night. He said they let it off and damn nearly brought you down. I said, yes. It was very good shooting, wasn't it? As I say, that was not without incidents. I think I spoke earlier on about the ME-262, so I won't do that again. But I will conclude by telling you a story which some of you may have heard, in which case I would ask you to keep silent for the benefit of the others who haven't heard. And it was a story about Group Captain Barder. You remember the chap without any legs? Some woman who ran a very posh girls' school on the south coast, which you'll recognise, wrote to Barder and asked him if he'd send down a pilot to give his experiences in the Battle of Britain. And Barder, who was a bit of a wag, sent down a Polish pilot who unfortunately suffered from a bit of a stutter. And anyway, he went down to this school, and all the girls were sort of put out in the hall, headmistress here, Polish pilot there. The Polish pilot wasted no time in explaining how, as he put it, at Angel's 10,000 feet, he said, I was looking out on my port wing, and he said, I saw one of these German Fokkers coming down, sort of guns firing. And he said, then I looked out on my starboard wing, and there was none of these German Fokkers coming in at me, guns firing. And I remember, watch out for the Hun in the sun. He said, and I looked out, and sure enough, he said, there were none of these German Fokkers coming at me with guns firing. And the headmistress, he paused for a moment, and the headmistress stepped in very smartly and said, girls, I think I should explain to you that the Focke-Wulf 190 was a very advanced German fighter plane. Very true, said the Pole, but he said these German Fokkers were driving Messerschmitts.